KevinJJohnston here, Canada's #1 income tax and corporate tax expert. This conversation that you are about to hear is me conversing with a junior auditor within the Canada Revenue Agency, somebody who sent a very brash and brazen letter out to my client stating that she was just going to show up of her own volition and that my client was to cooperate with everything on the letter. I chose to take the approach of being polite, and so did she, for that matter. I'm not going to put down this individual's contact information because of how polite and, let's face it, professional she was during the conversation. You know me, I love to rip on auditors. I can't stand them. But this conversation is not for entertainment. This one is for education. In this conversation, you're going to hear me explain a few things to this auditor, and you're also going to hear this auditor tell all of you that they have absolutely no authority whatsoever. You're intrigued now, aren't you? Here's the conversation.
Hello.
Hi, looking for Kelly Lewis.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Yes, this is her.
Yes, Kelly, this is KevinJJohnston calling from Limited. How's everything?
Good. How's everything with you?
Things are wonderful. Did you require the account number?
No, I don't require the account number. I'm actually driving right this second.
Well, that's
I
okay.
don't have your account in front of me.
That's okay. I'm just gonna. I'll go through a couple of quick things here. So I'm one of the shareholders in the business, and it's been put on my shoulders to deal with all things taxes, including the CRA. So, do you mind if I ask a couple of quick questions here? What exactly is the audit for?
The audit probably would most likely be for payroll, and it would be because there is either deficiencies. T4s were filed at the end of the year, and there was a difference. And what I mean by that is the T4s came in and said a certain amount, and then the amount that might have been paid for the remittances that are required to CRA could have been less than that.
I see.
And if that's the case, then that's what the audit's for. Or the other reason why I technically come out to do audits is if there's actually, like, if it's a current year and we're required, the company's required to pay remittances like monthly, and they got behind. So either one of the two things is the reason why an audit would be required.
Okay, so I've got the letter that you sent here. I just want to read a couple things and ask a couple of quick questions. So it says, Kelly Lewis, Trust Accounts Examination Officer, will go to your place of business. And it says on May 26th at 12:30 p.m. to examine your payroll and GST, HST books and records. Now, that's kind of audacious, don't you think, that you're just going to show up because you feel like showing up? Do you mind if I ask why the letter's worded that way?
Well, that's the way the letters are worded from CRA. And unfortunately, normally we try to make a call and try to make those appointments, okay, before we just show up. But the thing is that we were given a mandate, unfortunately, about a couple weeks ago to get these letters in the mail to let businesses know that we were looking to come out and do an audit, that certainly have a chance to call and discuss that, okay? But with the Canada Post strike that was happening or that was coming, okay, we were told to get those. We were told that we are, coming out on a certain week. We're given a week to do these, okay, come to the local area and to get these letters in the mail, because if the Canada strike was to happen on Friday, then chances are businesses like yourself wouldn't get the letter, wouldn't get a chance to call a CRA officer, make arrangements that's better for you, better for us, whatever the case might be. But we were told to get those in the mail so that a business like yourself would know that we are coming out, and that's what we require.
I see. Okay, so you're stating in this letter, I'm sure that you didn't write it, but you're stating in this letter that you're just going to show up. And I suspect that you...
And CRA officers can do that at any point in time. If we've called the business, left a message, attempted the numbers that are on CRA's information to contact directors, shareholders, whoever they might be, the contacts on that. And if we don't get a response, then those letters go out, and we do just show up.
Right.
CRA officers just show up, whether we're trust exams officers, auditors, or collectors.
I see.
We just show up at businesses.
Okay. And when the person says you're not coming inside, what do you do?
Well, then at that point in time, we do not come in. If you say that we're not coming inside, then we don't come in.
Right.
We do say that the books and records that you hold, or that the company holds, are held kind of in trust in the funds for Canada Revenue Agency officers.
Right.
So we can't come to some type of an agreement to get those books and records. Then myself as a CRA officer, what I would do is I would raise the assessment, right, under what's called an arbitrary notional assessment, because I couldn't obtain the books and records. Then those assessments would be assessed, be raised, and go to our collections department, fully collectible.
I see. So that sounds retaliatory, actually. If you, from an outside perspective, that sounds incredibly retaliatory, and that actually sounds like a violation of the criminal code. Malicious prosecution would be the crime that I was thinking about there. That doesn't sound like you're in a very good position.
It's not that at all, unfortunately, because the books and records are to be held and available for CRA officers at any point in time to be able to look and review them for payroll and HST for trust funds, help for the Crown. So if you don't provide those, if for whatever reason an agreement can't be obtained to provide those, whether it's the business itself, whether it's an authorized rep, whoever doesn't want to provide the books and records, then CRA's only thing to do is to raise assessments based on previous information that we have. And as I said, if I was coming out because there was a T4 difference, then what I do is, based on that T4 difference, based on records or based on submissions already, then I raise what's there, right? Without being able to review the books and records saying that that's valid.
Okay.
Then I raise based on that, and then at that point in time, it goes to collections. And at that point in time, because the books and records were not provided, then at that point in time, it becomes fully collectible from a collections officer.
Okay.
Like they can fully take legal action on that and collect that, because I've raised it based on not the records that were provided, but based on the information that had been submitted or could have been submitted, or whatever the case might be.
Okay, so let me just go a little bit further here, and this is not me giving you a difficult time. This is me trying to understand. What you're doing is you're quoting the Income Tax Act in this letter, and probably the Employment Insurance Act and so on, but you're not quoting anything in the criminal code here. So you're saying that we are not legally obligated to allow you in the building, nor are we legally obligated to even cooperate with you. Is that what I understand?
I have no idea criminally if you're obligated to. I would have to, I've never run into that situation. I do know that if we have issues getting into a place of business, that we actually, at that point in time, depending on, and I've never had to do it, but there has been points in time where we've been escorted by the RCMP. So that probably is way above me, but that would be our other division, like our criminal investigation, which CRA does have, a division that does that. So at that point in time, it would be out of my hands, and then it would go to, that department.
But the RCMP, the RCMP would not be allowed to escort you into someone's building without a court order and or a warrant. So does this...
I believe that is the case, right? And that is well above what my what my role is here.
Okay, so
I'm required or requested to request or ask for the books and records. I can show up. I can be asked to leave, which I would do. Which certainly I'm not going to be somewhere where I've been asked to leave. But at that point in time, it would be escalated up to another division.
Okay, good. So
where at that point in time, RCMP and other officers within the CRA would obtain whatever is required to obtain to get books and records.
Okay, so let me just kind of repeat what you said there. You do not have the authority to enter anyone's property. If someone says you must leave, then you leave by law, of course. And then you would have to, I suppose, escalate it to a team leader who would then, I suppose, speak to one of the lawyers in the Department of Justice who represents you to attempt to get a warrant, to then have you take that warrant to an RCMP detachment, and you put a request in for the RCMP to help you enforce the warrant. But how long does it take to get a warrant? Let's go with that.
I have no idea.
I see. How many times have you, as an auditor, got warrants? Any idea?
I've never. I'm not in that department in regards, as I said, it would be escalated up well past what my job is with CRA.
Okay, so
I'm a trust exams officer. It does not say auditor there in my title on your letter.
All right, that's fine. I mean, there's
I do carry a card, right? A card that does say, okay, the bearer of this authorized to administer and enforce a number of tax and benefit related statutes is listed on the CRA website, and therefore can enter a place of business, enter a personal residence, require a person on the premises to give assistance and answer questions, require a responsible person to accompany him to where they are legally provided, examine and copy records, examine and property.
Okay. Now that card, I've seen the
card that I carry does say that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Now I've seen that card before, and it's actually, unfortunately, it's borderline fraudulent, if you want my opinion, because at the same time, do you inform people that they have the right to ask you to leave, and they have the right to remain silent and the right to refuse? Do you ever tell people that?
No.
Why not?
Because the card says that they can answer questions. If they say, I'm not answering those, and can you leave? Then at that point in time, yes, I would.
But why would you not tell people of your rights? I mean, the police even tell you when they arrest you, they have guns.
Because I'm not a police officer.
Yeah, I get that. But whenever I'm talking to my clients and I ask personal questions, I tell them they're under no obligation to answer my questions. It's all voluntary. Why wouldn't you do the same thing?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Because look, I'm not being rude here when I say this. I'm really trying to grasp this letter and what our obligations are. And from everything you've just told me here, you're gonna show people a card that has incredibly threatening yet incredibly deceptive language on it. And anybody who receives a card or a visit from you or any auditor in the CRA can simply end the audit by saying, please leave. And at that point, you must leave.
Yes, right.
Right. That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. So then auditors.
Oh, yes. I under no obligation, am going to be confrontational at all. Like, I'm not saying that another officer wouldn't throw that card out, that another officer with CRA wouldn't have the RCMP escort them. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying how I would behave. If somebody asked me to leave their premises,
right, because
they did not want to answer questions and they did not want to deal with CRA, then I would leave.
Okay, so
I would go back. I would write this information up. I would then continue with my job, which is to make the differences, to make the account as accurate as I have with the information that's available to me, and then I would be done my job.
I see. So if someone says they don't want to cooperate with you, you simply write a report and you move on to the next person. Is that pretty much what I'm hearing?
Correct. Well, correct. I would do that. And if the records were not obtained at that point in time, and I did think that it needed to be escalated up and to our department that does deal with the RCMP, then of course, between a discussion with myself and my team leader, if that's the only way we were going to be able to get the books and records,
right,
then that's what I would do at that point in time.
Okay.
A lot of times what in turn happens is we raise the assessments, okay, because somebody didn't cooperate, did not give us the books and records. Those assessments are not completely accurate because we didn't have the books and records to go by. So then what in turn happens is then we get calls and say, how can we fix this? We say, well, once you provide the books and records, then it can be fixed. and then that's usually what happens at my level.
Okay, so it sounds to
But
me
if we
like
have a business that doesn't, if we have a business that does not want to be compliant, does not want to provide the books and records to CRA, which is their obligation to do when they open up a Canadian business in Canada, is to be able to provide those books and records to an officer of CRA. If they do not want to do that, okay, then at that point in time, then it goes to an auditor in investigations department that work hand in hand with our Department of Justice and RCMP to go and get and to get all those things that are needed to go in and actually take stuff off of the premises, which is a warrant and all that stuff.
Okay, but it has to be a warrant, and it has to be signed by a judge wearing a red sash. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yes, correct.
Okay, so it has to be a judge.
A warrant to go into someone's premises to take things off of there to somebody that is not compliant with CRA officers. Then yes, that is what happens. Yes.
So not a purple sashed judge from Canadian Tax Court, but an actual Superior Court judge wearing a red sash. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's important. I'll tell you why, because I've read the entire website for the Canadian Tax Court, and they have zero jurisdiction over equity, property, money, and otherwise. So any order from that court is actually invalid, and it's terrifying that that court issues commands that it doesn't have the jurisdiction to do. I find that very odd. How often do you use the Canadian Tax Court to get what you want? Any idea?
No, I sometimes get forwarded, like when it has happened in our department in regards to going to that level. I sometimes get court cases that come in and say, hey, here's an interesting read. Go ahead and read it and see how we made out or see how we didn't make out, whatever the case might be. But I wouldn't know the number at all of how many of those cases.
But is that something that you do as an auditor? Like you personally, do you go to tax court to try to get orders, or do you go to a judge in a superior court?
I don't know. I don't know what our justice system, what department they go through. I do know when people file appeals with decisions that have been made with CRA, that goes to tax court. I do know that those are like tax court, but then I do know that depending on how they make out in tax court, I know at that point in time, then they can file, to go further than that.
Okay. So with
tax, I do know that tax court is not where the final decision lays. I don't believe. I do believe people can ask for, whatever would be above tax court or whatever it is above any type of court, superior court or whatever that's called.
Right. Okay. No, that's a very fair statement, because I've read a lot of case law to do with the with tax court, and as it turns out, it's merely a tribunal with a fancy name. So whatever decisions they render are not enforceable and completely defeatable within any of the superior courts within the province by a red-sashed judge. And it's, again, me not giving you a difficult time. It's me trying to ascertain the severity of your involvement with the business and how far, of course, you're willing to go with it. And do we have to worry about anything? I mean, the CRA, will you bring a gang over with weapons to do anything to harm us?
No, that's absolutely never been done. That is almost absurd to even suggest that. Really.
Well, the reason I ask is that we don't carry guns. CRA officers, we're not the IRS. We do not carry guns. There's nobody in CRA that carries guns, even in our level that would come in accompanied by the RCMP. It would be the RCMP that is carrying guns for protection for the CRA officers. I see.
It might come in and at that point in time, then a demand or something like that has been issued to provide the books and records. It's not just a request. It's not a request like I've made to review the books and records because something doesn't seem compliant, and I'm trying to make the business compliant. Okay, at that point in time, it's escalated past me or past an officer at my level that has gone to, these are not being provided after a request and a demand. At that point in time, then it's criminal or then it's legally like going above where judges, lawyers, RCMP, and our investigation team is covered.
Okay. And I see what you're saying here. So a warrant signed by a judge would then be issued, and that's when the CRA representative could show up with a pair of police officers to then enforce the warrant. But because tax court's only a tribunal, it cannot issue a warrant. It must go to the superior court of that province. So how closely do you and the other auditors work with the actual provincial superior courts? Sorry, you still there? Did I lose the call? Sorry. Hi, you still there? Oh, I lost the call. Damn it. I'm going to call her right back. The tower dropped out.
Hello?
Hi, sorry about that. My cell tower just dropped off there. Yeah, the question I was asking is how closely do you and the other auditors work directly with the superior courts of the individual provinces to get those warrants?
It wouldn't be anybody, as I said, at my level. It would be escalated up, and they work hand in hand.
I see.
As far as I know.
No, that's a fair statement. I get that. Above your pay grade. I completely understand that. All right. So then what I'm hearing, and again, this is not an insult to you, but what I'm hearing is auditors and field officers like yourself have absolutely no authority whatsoever in Canada. You just ask for things, and if you're told no, you can't get them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And again, very fair, and I appreciate the honesty on that. Now, something I did do this weekend is I read chapter 10 of the Auditor's Handbook. Have you read that?
No, because I'm not an auditor. If you read my title again, I'm a trust exams officer. Trust exams officer. Nowhere in that does it say I'm an auditor. So no, I don't have access to the auditor's handbook because that's not my job.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have a copy.
I'm a compliance officer.
That's fine.
I'm a compliance officer. So my job is to make a business compliant. The reason why I come out is because a business is incompliant for something, for some reason, in regards to either they have outstanding payroll, okay, either remittances or, as I said, they filed information that is not adding up. So that either means that they've missed remittances. And the other case is, too, I come out on the other hand, too. When there's a large credit there, that means they overpaid what looks like they've overpaid. I go out and validate those credits as well. And at that point in time, get the money back in the business's hands. The other thing I do is I do HST reviews. Okay, so if a business is missing behind, whether they're monthly, quarterly, or annually filers, I come out and I kind of do a little review. I take a look. I say, yes, they are withholding the proper HST. Can you file your HST return, please? If not, then okay, then we do raise assessments on those too.
Okay.
Okay, and at that point in time, they all go to collections. That is the extent. I'm not an auditor. I do not read the auditor's handbook. I don't have access to it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to point something out in chapter 10. I mean, chapter 10, it's a crazy chapter. It could be turned into some kind of dystopian novel. It's wild, where there's about 60 pages in that chapter that teach auditors how to lie to the public. But I think the most interesting part of that chapter, and this is the one that pertains to you and me currently, is it is completely legal for a Canadian corporation to store their files outside of the country. And should the files be stored outside of Canada, the auditor or the field officer requires permission to go and see the files. So what I need you to understand is that all the files for the corporation, everything you want to see, was transferred outside the country 2 months ago. The reason being is that our accountant, who was doing an audit for us already, is currently in Panama. And all the files are there in a city called Coronado. So what would happen here is I've been granted the authority to give you permission to come to Coronado, and I can meet you there and review all the files. I am granting that permission to you today. When would you like to get that done?
Well, that's not something that I can make a decision on. I, of course, would need to speak to individuals, bosses well above me to see if we can get that arranged.
Yeah, most certainly.
I mean, it wouldn't be me because as I said, I'm not an auditor.
Right.
Yeah, you're reading out of the auditor's chapter, which I'm not. So at this point in time, if the books and records aren't here, okay, cannot be provided, then at that point in time, it would be me to go to my team leader, my boss in CRA, advise him of this, and see at this point in time what he requires me to do to finish this file off of my list of jobs to do.
And that's fair. That's fair.
I don't suspect it's going to be. I don't suspect it's going to be a flight to where the books and records are. Then at that point in time, I would proceed to send it possibly to our international department of auditors. At that point in time, like which we do have a department in CRA that does handle that kind of stuff. So at that point in time, it wouldn't even be a job that I would do.
I see. Okay. Well. Yeah. What I'll do then is this. I mean, I'm going to extend the same courtesy to you that you've extended to me today. You've been incredibly helpful and incredibly polite, and thank you for that. I'm inviting you and or the auditor who might be one rank above yourself to land at PTY Airport and come out to Coronado. It's about $25 to take a bus and maybe $50 to take a private car to where the warehouse is. I'll inform our CPA who's there now that I've extended the invitation. And when we decide collectively on the date, I'll make sure that I'm there to escort you there and sit down and go through all of the corporate records. Does that work for you?
I can certainly extend that as that's an offer, but as I said, it would not be me that you're meeting. That's not something that would be in my level as a trust exams officer. That's something that I would do. It would be our international audit department,
right?
Or at that level, or I'm not sure, it would be maybe somebody in our audit department that would take a look to see when books and records are outside of Canada, what they do as auditors. Me, myself, I personally cannot answer that, right? Okay. But as I said, I can certainly write up. There will be a report at the end of mine, whether I get to see, whether I get the books and records, whatever I do in regards to this file, which possibly could be raise the assessment.
Right.
Okay. Based on the best of the information that I do have on the file. And then at that point in time, then it would go, and if the books and records, the only way to get those provided would be for a visit, then at that point in time, it would go to the correct department that's going to do that.
Okay, so if there's an international audit department, that will all be in my report.
Okay, perfect. That will all be in my report that I write up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. And in my report here, I'm going to say that you are certainly the politest CRA representative I've ever spoken to. Thank you for that. And that I have informed you of the fact that the files are currently in Latin America, and that I have extended the invitation to you or to whoever is above you to come down to Panama and have a look around at the files. Now, the office is in, like I said, it's in Coronado. So if you want to write that name down, it's about an hour or 45 minutes west of the capital, Panama City.
Okay.
So yeah, the invitation is on the table, and it's a legitimate one. We'd love to go through the records there. But one thing I do have to request, if you don't mind, is could we just go ahead and cancel your appearance at the office, because none of the directors and none of the shareholders are going to be there. Everyone's going to be out, and out for a couple of weeks. There won't be anyone there at all to assist you. Can I count on you to go ahead and cancel that, please?
Yeah, I will cancel that. I will not show up at the business into the office looking for someone to speak to.
That's perfect. But this is my cell phone number, and I'm granting you permission right now to contact me anytime you like, and I'll answer whatever questions I can at that time.
Perfect.
I greatly appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
Can I get your name again? Because, of course, I was driving at the time, and now I've since pulled over. So I'd like your name so that I can put it in my report that we spoke.
Absolutely. The first name is Kevin, Kevin.
Yes, Kevin. Yeah.
The middle initial is J.
Okay.
And the last name is Johnston, Johnston.
Great.
Okay. And I'm one of the shareholders here, and I am the one designated to deal with the CRA and or anything to do with taxes and fines and whatever else may or may not come up.
Okay.
Wonderful. Greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for calling today, Kevin.
Very welcome.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye now.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. You heard it right there. Kevin J. Johnston here, Canada's #1 tax expert. We just had, she says she's not an auditor, but she's an auditor. You just heard an auditor say they have no authority in Canada. They don't carry guns. You do not have to cooperate with them in any way, shape, or form. The best that they can do, the worst that they can do, is to reassess you if you choose not to cooperate, which, if you know me, we will immediately object to, followed by immediately appeal and run this thing through their ridiculous tax court and then to the superior court of whatever province that you are in. So if an agent shows up at your door and flashes their little card, ignore them, tell them to get lost, get out of here, send them packing. And if they show up with a pair of cops, typically the RCMP, if they do not have a warrant signed by a provincial superior court judge, you tell all of them to get off your property immediately. The CRA has nothing. They are nothing. If you want to pay zero tax for the rest of your life, get a hold of me right now at KevinJJohnston.com.